Okay.
So I'm going to present a few songs from the Illinois country, so Upper Louisiana, which is a former province of New France, located in the Upper Mississippi Valley and the Wabash Valleys. And I feel a bit embarrassed to talk about this topic today because there are a few specialists of the field in the room, so I hope they will give me constructive criticism at the end. Despite a much smaller French colonial population than in Louisiana or Canada, and also the important influx of English and German-speaking immigrants throughout the 19th century, French was still widely spoken in the Illinois villages until at least the beginning of the 20th century. Also, there are some variabilities between different localities. Nowadays, also folks don't really speak French anymore. They still sing a few French Creole songs. The Illinois country was an important communication channel of goods, furs, wheat, etc., as well as people, and therefore songs and music between both Canada and Louisiana, and also Europe and the Caribbean. So this may have helped preserve the French-American language and culture here after the fall of New France. One of the reasons of my coming here in Lafayette actually is to research historical evidences of the circulations of musicians' songs between Upper and Lower Louisiana. It's not going to be the main focus of today's talk, but I wanted to mention it in case some of you have some thoughts about it. I'd be glad to hear them. Sorry. So I'm going to present 6 songs from the Illinois country and reflect on the motivations of the collectors who gathered them in order to give some answers as to why and how these songs have been preserved. Because local tradition bearers as well as outside collectors and musicians interested in the Franco-Creole songs of Illinois have played a key role in upholding this heritage. From the 19th century, francophone, bow-tied wearing scholars to the Mississippi Friends of the Folk Arts, who in the 70s recorded and invited French Creole musicians from Missouri and Illinois to play at festivals as far as Washington, D.C. Some of those musicians from Missouri actually also played here in Lafayette in the 80s. And so actually the main objective of my research is not only to study the song and the music repertoire, but to understand the multiple interactions between researchers, institutions, and tradition bearers that lead to the recreation, preservation, and also the very definition of this heritage to which we attach value. So the first song I'm not going to talk about is maybe the most emblematic of these French songs of the Illinois country, both for the communities concerned and for the rest of the world. It's La Guyanée, the New Year's Eve quest song. It is still sung today in Prairie du Rocher, Illinois, has been successfully recreated in St. Genevieve, Missouri, and is the subject of regular attempts to recreate it in all nights. And it has been the subject of numerous scholarly works from the late 19th century to the present day. And for example, Anna Servaes, who's here tonight, did a PhD thesis and wrote a book here in UL Lafayette about La Guyanée. So I won't deal with it today. Also, in a way, it's a little bit like it's the tree that hides the forest of Illinois songs. And so even though now it's like a small wood, but still I'd like to delve into this small wood. So, and actually it's the same French-American scholar from St. Louis who gave us the very first transcription of La Guyanée in the mid-19th century that we owe the songs I'm going to tell you about now. Ça va, vous me comprenez?
Oui.
So, in 1845, Judge Wilson Prim published an article in a St. Louis newspaper entitled History of the Chansons de l'année du coup. And this is the first locally written French Creole songs that appear in print, in my knowledge. The song was written by Prim's schoolmaster, Jean-Baptiste Trudeau, right after the Battle of St. Louis on May 26, 1780. This British attack against the French village failed, but some 20 inhabitants go away. So about 20 inhabitants of St. Louis perished during the battle, and at that time there were only 700 people in St. Louis, so there was a big loss. Prim learned the song from his mother and grandmother, and according to him it was very well known to the people of St. Louis until the 1820s. And this song has never been recorded, but Prim wrote down the melody in his personal notes, so that's what's on the photo. So I'm going to play it on the banjo, which is absolutely not a typical instrument of the French Creole of Upper Louisiana. But there are some banjo players, notably Charlie Beats. So I think that's okay if I play the banjo. Also, you don't want to hear me play the fiddle. So. Fun fact, the banjo has a chanterelle, just like the...
Yeah.
But you don't know that, of course. So, a few words about Wilson Prim. He was a French Creole on his mother's side, and on his father's side he was an Anglo-American with some French Huguenot ancestors, so he has a kind of a double French heritage. He wasn't born when the Battle of St. Louis occurred, but his mother experienced it, and the great-grandfather of his wife was killed during the attack. By publishing this song, Prim's goal was to present the French Creole as loyal American patriots and also valiant fighters. And this is in sharp contrast to the condescending portraits often drawn by Anglo-American commentators. In their view, for most of them, the Franco-Creole strong taste for dancing and also drinking illustrated their indolent character, their lack of ambition, and their uncivilized manners, like they dance with the Indians on Sunday, can you imagine? So by the time Prüm published the song, the French Catholic inhabitants of St. Louis were actually victims of very strong xenophobic sentiments. The city was the scene of several nativist riots. Anti-Catholicism was all the more intense in the mid-1840s as the United States were about to go to war with Mexico. And the song and also Prüm's comments present the French Creoles as brave fighters, while the Spanish governor of Upper Louisiana, because St. Louis was part of Spanish Louisiana at that time, Leyva, and also the Spanish Lieutenant Cartabona, they are presented in the song as traitors in the pay of the British, although this theory has been refuted by historians since. So Prüm publishes this song, La chanson de l'année du coup, in a strained context where some Anglo-Americans fear that the French Creoles of St. Louis will refuse to fight against the Mexicans based on their shared Catholicism. With this song, Prüm aims also to prove that they were good American patriots who would not hesitate to take up arms against the Mexicans, as they had done against the British, who were allegedly with in league with the ruling Spanish. And if you want to know more about this, I recommend to read the work of Anaka Roberts. She wrote quite a deal about that. La chanson de l'année du coup is closely related to another older song, widespread in French America, called Courriers au Bois, which announces General Braddock's defeat at the Battle of the Monongahela in 1755, at the beginning of the 7 Years' War. And this song was part of the repertoire of French-Irish octogenarian Joséphine Canet, that Josh Caffrey knows well, not personally, I mean, worked with her collection. So I'm gonna just play a. Can I go to?
Click on the folder right there.
So this is a short extract of Camille singing this song for Alan Lomax and Elizabeth Lomax.
La nouvelle de la crème des clochettes aussi bien défendue. Ils ont aussi gagné la gloire.
So the melody is very different, but the lyrics are very similar. J'ai oublié quoi. C'était comme ça. Oui. So Joséphine Canet, on general occasions, she told Lomax and also other collectors that some of the songs she sang were also sung by the women of Vincennes, among whom is her great-grandmother, as they prepared food for General George Rogers Clark and his army, who came to recapture Vincennes from the British in 1779. And she recounts how the women sung to cheer themselves up as they displayed their zeal by wading through the slough and mud to dig the potatoes and other vegetables needed to feed the half-famished men. And there is quite some kind of an analogy between the women of Vincennes who wade through the mud and Clark and his army who had to cross flooded areas to get to Vincennes. And of course, the Canet's testimony is unverifiable, but the context of memorial fever in the interwar period around Clark and the capture of Vincennes may help to understand why Canet told it to the collectors and why they echoed it in their reports. So in the 20s, there were a lot of hagiographic biographies of Clark who were published. And in 29, the city organized a huge celebration for the 150 years anniversary of the capture of Vincennes, with historical reenactments, concerts, and parade. And also a concert of Charles Marchand et ses troubadours, a Montreal artist. And the huge success of this concert actually encouraged the collection of French songs from Vincennes, amongst whom Camille's songs, and also the creation of a choir where songs from Joséphine Canet were taught. Finally, so both Prim and Canet, for them the inclusion of Creoles and their music in the episodes of the War of Independence serves to show that Creoles are good patriots, but also that the expansion of the United States was welcomed by the local French population, which has been, like, today historians are a bit reserved about this theory. It's more complicated than that. So I'm going to sing another song from the Chinese repertoire, which seems to testify to the circulation of songs between Louisiana and Vincennes. According to Joséphine Canet, the boatmen who transported goods from Vincennes to New Orleans would bring back songs that they would then teach line by line to the Vincennes folks during collectives evenings. And this version of the well-known song about the girl dressed as a sailor set the action in the port of New Orleans, while the French versions often set the action in Bordeaux or La Rochelle or La Martinique. And I have to retune my banjo. I had planned to talk about the fact that the banjo was not a traditional instrument for Upper Louisiana while I was retuning my banjo, but I forgot. Not retuning, like changing the tuning. So the next song is referred to by local prairie grocer collectors and informants as a slave song. It belonged to the repertoire of the village's last black inhabitant, Félix Pascal. His great-grandfather was probably a Native American named Pascal, and his great-grandmother, Marie, was a slave. And Félix's grandfather was freed around 1830. So here's an excerpt of this song sung by Percy Clare, who learned it from Félix, and that was recorded by French folklorist Alfred Pouinard in 1953. Alors, this song is quite well known both in France and in Canada, but this particular version is unusual and it feels more like a Caribbean version because of some of the lyrics and the melody. So it's actually one of the songs I'm looking for here, but without any success yet. But if you know a variant of this song, I'd be interested to know about it. So the emphasis placed by prairie grocer, tradition bearers and collectors on this song and the figure of Félix Pascal clearly serves to highlight a supposed racial harmony in the village's past. But apart from this song, no trace remains of the French-speaking repertoire of the blacks of the former Illinois country, although we knew that they took an important part in La Guyanese ritual, and even though they represented up to 1/3 of the village's population until 1830. They are said to have anglicized faster than white, and in the 1930s they left the Illinois villages en masse and went to the city. While there were no major incidents in Prairie du Rocher, in Sainte-Geneviève there was a race riot in 1930 that led to the expulsion of all the black folks from the town, either black French Creoles or African American that came from other parts of the south of the United States. Another Prairie du Rocher song that also deals with the women's willingness to get married was handed down to posterity thanks to Joseph Médard-Carrière, an Ontarian folklorist, and Percy Clare. La chanson de la Prairie du Rocher is a variant of a song also widespread in France and Canada, and also in Louisiana. Most of you probably know the Lula Landry's variant of that same song called Les Filles de Vermillon. And so, once again, the melody is different, but the lyrics are very similar. I'm going to sing it because the carrier cylinders are they should be renumerized. You should do that. No, they're in all mines. Well, some of them are in all mines and others are still in Laval. Okay. And they use them, I told you, to make photograph demonstrations.
You think it doesn't have enough what?
No, yeah, no. Kind of a joke. C'est dans la prairie du rocher, il y a des filles en quantité. J'ai plus trop. C'est dans la prairie du rocher. C'est la même tone à ça.
Ouais, c'est celle qui est confortable.
Ah bon, bah vas-y, chante là alors. Yves, mon mari, va vous chanter la chanson de C'est dans la prairie du rocher.
C'est dans la prairie du rocher, il y a des filles en quantité. C'est dans la prairie du rocher, Il y a des filles en quantité qui reviennent maintenant, des petites et des grandes qui sont à marier, personne qui les demande. Les filles, elles sont toutes rassemblées, une lettre à composer. Les filles, elles sont toutes rassemblées, une lettre à composer. Elles l'ont portée le dimanche au curé. Tenez, monsieur le curé, publiez cette lettre. Le curé n'a pas manqué une lettre à publier. Le curé n'a pas manqué une lettre à publier. Écoutez tous, garçons de ces villages, si vous le mariez, les filles feront tapage. Les garçons, ils sont rassemblés, au cabaret, ils sont allés. Les garçons, ils sont rassemblés, au cabaret, ils sont allés. Buvons, chantons, faisons des réjouissances, oui, sont à marier les filles qui nous demandent.
Ah oui, and I wanted to play a small excerpt of Lula Landry's Les filles de 20 millions that Chris sent us yesterday from a recording made by Barry Ansley in 1977.
Oh, j'étais assurée qu'il y a des filles en quantité, des petites et des grandes. Ils voudrions se marier, mais personne les demande. Ils voudrions se marier, mais personne les demande.
And this song, every time it's found, is always local in character, like it's always les filles of this or that village or region. Sometimes it's the village nearby, and in this case, sometimes the boys don't want to get married with the girls of this other village, and sometimes it's the own village, like in Prairie du Rocher, and those are the good girls to get married with. And last but not least, I wanted to talk a little bit about more, because I'm a historian, so I'm usually working on past, like early 20th century, but the 70s were actually a very busy and important decade for the study, the popularization and diffusion and preservation of French songs from Illinois and Missouri. And it wasn't until the 70s that collectors began to record the English language songs also of the region's French Creoles, and also the instrumental music like the Missouri Friends of the Folkards did. Notably, they recorded the repertoire of fiddlers Joe Pollitt and Charlie Pascia, and actually we're one of the members of the Missouri Friends of the Folkart tonight, so it would be nice to discuss. Voilà. Thank you for what you did. And also in the 70s, linguist Rosemary Hyde Thomas compiled a list of all-time American country songs that was known by the French folks of Vieille Mine, and there are quite a few of them. And also, I don't know if I need to mention Ray Brassio's work here, because anybody must know him But thank you to sir. And I'm gonna end this talk by singing the Pistol Packing Mama that was sung by Anne Pratt, and she sang just the chorus in French for Brian Hawkins in 2018, and so this is an homage to Anne Pratt also. And if you know the song, we can sing together. I need to retune again. I should use that. Jumped from a building. Who's the one who hit the ground first? Between the guitar player and the banjo player. Anybody knows this joke? It's the guitar player, because the banjo player had to stop to retune. Drinking beer in the cabaret was not having fun, until one night she hugged me right, and now I'm on the run. Mel pistolet la terre, babe, mel pistolet la terre, pistolet par terre, mama, mel pistolet la terre. She kicked out my windshield, she kicked me over the head. She cursed and cried and said I lied and wished that I was dead. Mel pistolet la terre, babe, mel pistolet la terre, pistolet par terre, mama, mel pistolet la terre. Mel pistolet la terre, babe, mel pistolet la terre, pistolet par terre, mama, mel pistolet la terre. C'est quoi en anglais? Lay that pistol down, babe, lay that pistol down. Back in mama, lay that pistol down. So thank you everyone, and thank you to Rachel and
La conclusion sur la créativité démontrée par la traduction.
oui, j'allais les lire.
Sorry.
I hate doing conclusions because it's never done. So, but the preservation of these songs express a strong attachment to the region's historic French-American past, even if today's folks no longer speak much that language. In the case of Prim and Cani, this preservation effort expresses a desire to challenge the representation of Franco-Creole as historically irrelevant, and to make them as important Americans in the history of the United States, as much important as the descendants of the Pilgrim Fathers. And for the tradition bearers, Félix Pascal, Percy Claire, and currently the local Vieillines folklorist Ken Bone, which I unfortunately haven't had the time to talk about, the continued practice of these songs serves to affirm a specific ethnocultural and local identity, not French-Canadian, not even really French-American, but French-American from Vieillines, from Prairie du Rocher. Each village, having over the decades constructed its own local identity based on the history of its settlements, which happened to be originally French. So voilà. Merci tout le monde et merci à Josh et Rachel pour l'invitation et merci à Yves d'avoir chanté avec moi et pour le travail d'équipe. Voilà. Thank you. Last but not least, thank you Esteban for letting me crash your evening.
Not a problem.
Thank you. I don't know if you have questions or not.
Si il faut chanter une chanson, c'est une variante de Elle a ravi le corps d'un marinier.
Ouais.
Mais il y a une variante dans la Louisiane qui s'appelle Aux Illinois.
Oui.
Aux Illinois. Est-ce qu'il y a une connexion là?
Illinois,
Mais c'est un
des
grenadier
oui, c'est
qui
un
était
grenadier.
charmé, pas un
Oui.
marinier. Mais est-ce qu'il y a peut-être une connexion là?
Ben ça justement c'est la... En fait alors cette chanson le grenadier qui a ravi le cœur de... la référence aux Illinois on la trouve en Louisiane,
Ouais.
dans notamment les collectes auprès d'Alma Barthélémy, dans le répertoire d'Alma Barthélémy, mais on en trouve aussi au Canada, des versions qui disent aux Illinois.
Ok.
Et
en Acadie.
Et en Acadie.
Après Robert Boutillier.
Ouais.
Ok.
C'est
Aux Unois, enfin...
aux Lénois,
aux Lénois.
à la Vinois. C'est
Ok.
très loin quand même.
Ouais.
Et Robert Boutillier, on a collecté.
Ah,
Ouais.
c'est intéressant.
Et donc ça, oui, c'est aussi une question. D'où vient cette chanson, et surtout, pas tant d'où elle vient, parce que, mais pourquoi cette référence aux Illinois?
Ouais.
Parce que ça vient d'un soldat qui était stationné aux
C'est
Illinois.
aux Illinois, il y a
Ouais.
de jolies filles.
C'est pour ça que je disais tout à l'heure qu'on voudrait bien se plonger dans
Oui.
Fred le grenadier si tu veux.
C'est clair.
Ok.
Are there any young musicians in the remnants of French Illinois or French Indiana today who perform the music or have any interest in the music? We're so lucky here to still have young people
Yeah.
coming up and taking part in the narrative song tradition and in Cajun music traditions. But is there any kind of a folk scene in
There is, so in southern Illinois, there is a very cool local scene, but it's not specifically French. But there are very cool honky-tonk country singers and all. There is a guy named Stéphane, and I forgot his last name, who's a fiddler. He's from Carbondale, and he's not from French descendants. But he learned la Guyanais, he's playing fiddle tunes, he's trying to learn the repertoire, he's also playing Cajun music and Québécois and Breton. And at La Guyanais there are also rather young participants, like this fiddler Sarah that Anna knows well, and so it's still like, it's not like here. And Stromat, of course. But he's not very young anymore, so that's how I did
I will add to that because I went to Old Mine's 300th anniversary of the summer, and there are younger musicians who are playing. They had a lot of people playing and there, and I'd also met a couple of people at one of the conferences. They were learning, the young musicians were learning some of the songs. So. It's small in number, but like she said, that there are people who are trying to keep it alive, and even people who are not of French heritage are really interested in preserving the history. And so.
Yeah.
Local people seem to recognize it more and more value, even if they're not from French heritage, and to get into it. That's why he quoted Stéphane, for example.
Yeah. Bon, on va boire une bière maintenant. C'est pas possible.